Hello, Deanna here, and thanks so much for being here. So in this video, I just want to talk about my goal for the summer of 2022. So to honor something that was started 80 years ago, I have a goal over this summer to read these stories and journals that were written by a young girl named Anne Frank. So this is the Diary of a Young Girl that was published by her father from all of the journal entries and notes that Anne had written during World War II. So Anne Frank was born June 12th, 1929, and when she was 13 years old in 1942, she received a journal from her mom and dad as her birthday present. And then shortly after her birthday, her family had to go into hiding due to the Nazis that were running rampant in Germany in 1942. Anne had heard on the radio a couple years later that the Dutch radio was urging residents to write journals and keep notes and things to tell the story of what happened and tell the world about what life was like while she was living in Germany during the Nazi regime. So Anne did have that as a goal. She wanted to tell her story. She wanted to tell the world what happened. And she also had a goal to be a writer and an author when she was older. Unfortunately, Anne didn't get to see that goal come to life, as after a few years of being in hiding, which was when she was writing these journals, she went into her hiding shortly after her 13th birthday with her family, and they were forced to hide in apartments and an attic over a warehouse that her father had worked at, and that is where she lived with 8 people, like in total. There was 8 people all in this hiding spot called the Annex, and they had to live there and hide there. And this book highlights and captures all of those moments and what Anne was going through and her perspective on everything happening. Unfortunately, one of the very tragic things about Anne's life is that when she was only 15 years old, her family were discovered and captured by the German police and sent to internment camps, and that is where Anne unfortunately passed away from reports due to typhus fever. So unfortunately, Anne never got to see her dreams become a reality, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. And what's really sad is that just months later, after she had passed away, that same camp was liberated. And then the only surviving member out of the 8 people that were discovered, captured, and imprisoned was her father. He was the only one. Her father, Otto Frank, was the only one that survived. He lost 2 children, he lost his wife and their friends that were in hiding. And he found her journals and her notes, and he got them published to be able to tell Anne's story, and so that her voice wasn't lost in that horrible war. I can't even imagine some of what that was like, and especially as the father publishing that after your daughter is gone. But I'm glad that we have this story to see her record of what happened, so that we have something. She has become a bit of an icon for World War II and hope and perseverance and just the power of what a young girl's voice can do, and just how much light she shone on what happened. So I think it's really important to remember her and read her story. So that's what I want to do this summer. I want to take some time. I have read this book previously. I don't remember all of it because it was so long ago and I was so young when I read it. So I want to go ahead and reread it again now in her memory and just an honor. It is a bit of a heavy read because my mind, when I'm reading it, tends to think about what happens and oh my goodness and all of that type of stuff. So it's going to be a bit of a heavy read for me. So that's why I'm giving myself all summer, because there might be times when I have to just kind of put it down to let myself have a moment. But I really want to push through and read this again and really just remember her story and give that honor to her. So that is what I am planning to do over this summer, so I can remember the story of Anne Frank and what her and her family went through during these times when she was hiding in the annex. So that is my goal for summer 2022. I'm curious if you have read the story of Anne Frank or if you know a bit about it, because it is a fairly infamous story. It is very infamous. Like I said, she became a bit of the symbol of hope and just love and perseverance, because one of the lines that she wrote, which I want to read, which I found, was, "Everyone has inside him a piece of good news. The good news is that you don't know how great you can be, how much you can love, what you can accomplish, and what your potential is." So, like I said, she was just such a inspiration, I think, in the way that she was going through all of this. And yes, I've already read some of it already in the past couple weeks. And yes, there are moments when she's a teenager. She's going to be upset with her mom or her sister or things that are going on, but she still kept going. She still kept that hope. And I want to read more about it. I just want to take some time and really sit and remember, because in remembrance is where we acknowledge the past, we acknowledge what has been, and it's how we help stop anything horrific like this happening again. So I want to read this in honor of her and all the lives that were lost during that horrible war, and how much it's even continuing to impact, because it was such a big moment in history, and it is something that we need to not forget, and we need to remember those lives that were affected and those that fought hard for us and everything that surrounded that event. We just need to remember so that we don't get complacent and fall into horrible habits like that again, and with prejudice and just all of the nastiness that came from that. I want to remember some of the good and some of the lives that were really affected and the hopes that they had and the dreams that they had. And I really want to honor her by reading this, because she didn't get to see her dream come true, but the world has seen it. And I want to take some time this summer and just remember that as well. It's also, to me, it's fascinating sometimes how much you don't realize your words can affect others. And here we are 80 years later, and her words are still affecting the world. Her words are still out there. There are millions of copies of this that have been sold, and that's just because I think it's so real. It's a young girl who's sharing her realness during a very horrible time, tumultuous time, and when things were so uncertain. There was death and war and just hopelessness going on, and here was a real human girl sharing her firsthand accounts. And so I want to make sure I'm remembering that when I am doing this, because this is a real person, had a real life, real family, and she went through real horrible times. And so I just do want to keep that in mind. That's why I will have to take some breaks and give myself that time to read it, because that can be pretty heavy to think about. So overall, that is my plan for the summer of 2022, is to read Anne Frank, and then I will come back with perhaps a bit of a analysis on the book and just my thoughts and feelings after reading the whole book. So that's my plan for the summer. Well, that's going to be it for me in this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves, and you will see me next time. Bye!